What's up? What's good? What's poppin'? What's cracking? What's percolating? What's really good in the hood? It's your man Theo Butler. And yes, before we even get started, this is a hashtag recast T'Challa or else hashtag boycott Black Panther 2 video. I'm talking kind of low because it's late. It's wee hours of the morning. And yeah, it's with a different twist. And like I said, I'm going to tell y'all one day I'll be coming up with these twists. But before we begin, man, make sure you like, share, subscribe. Leave a comment if you like. Leave a comment if you don't like. Leave a constructive comments. And the comments are important, regardless, one way or the other, because they do help me grow. I can disagree with you and still learn from my disagreement. I do a lot of reflecting. I do. And you can learn even when you disagree with one another. You can learn from one another, appreciate one another, gain a healthy respect for one another. Difference of opinions matters to that. Nevertheless, that's not what this video is about. So I was on a radio show a few weeks ago. We're gonna wind up getting that clip up and everything like that with my man D Real and Miss Jasmine. Shout out to y'all. Thank y'all so much for having me on the radio show. And one of the things that Miss Jasmine asked me, she said, "What does T'Challa mean to you? Why is it so important that the role get recast?" And I was reflecting on that question. It was a fair question, but just now I was reflecting on the question, and I was thinking about when somebody else asked me that question. Why is it so important to you for T'Challa to be recast? Because I'm going to be asked that question. I am. I said, the answer that I gave to Miss Jasmine and D was incorrect. I told them why T'Challa was important to me. That was being selfish. I should have told them why T'Challa was important to us. You grow up in the 70s, you have black exploitation movies. Yes, you do have Miss Pam Grier, and we are all indebted to her for what she's given us. But black exploitation films, it's not necessarily something you want to be proud of. Glorified pimps and hustlers and prostitutes and things of that nature. Yeah, we had our few action heroes here and there. But for the most part, that's what we got. Glorified prostitutes, pimps, hustlers. Those were our heroes in the 70s. Unless you could read. Unless you dare pick up a comic book. We had a lot of boys, myself included, that didn't have a father figure for a significant period of time in our lives, if at all. And if we could read, who do you think taught us our moral compass during such a troubling time? It were the heroes. For us black boys without a father figure, and we know that exists in the black community, right? Like, let's not act like that. That's who we had. A king, a son, someone we could relate to. Because as I stated in a previous video, when I moved from the Bronx of New York to Camilla, Georgia in 1981, that's a shock like none other, cultural wise. You learn right then and there, you can't be Steve Rogers, regardless of how devoted you are to America. You can't be Tony Stark, regardless of how much money you have, how smart your family is, how much money your family has. It didn't matter. Low key today, it still doesn't. But I could be a king. And in being that king, I could learn how to honor my mother and father I think it's safe to say we could use some of that in our community. I can't speak on anybody else's community, but I think it's safe to say we could use a lot of that in the black community, right? Right. Then when Reginald Hutland introduced Shorty, we saw that relationship, that bond between a brother and sister. Somehow we've been convinced that that connection no longer matters. If I look at the about page of Black Lives Matter, T'Challa is not in there. And if T'Challa's not in there, Gerald Theophilus Butler isn't in there. And if Gerald Theophilus Butler in there, what other male isn't in there? T'Challa, the heterosexual black male, doesn't have a problem with members of the LGBTQ. He welcomes them with open arms. Yes. And although he has his own religion, he's able to respect the religious views of others. He doesn't allow them to influence his religion, and he doesn't try and influence theirs. Imagine that. Someone who honors his mother and father. Someone who knows how to respect other people's viewpoints. Someone who is a protector of women. Wow, that's amazing. That's who we'll sacrifice. That's the image that we want to take down. That's the portrayal we no longer want to see. Why? Why isn't that important to not just me? Why isn't that important to you? In 2021, where we still have a war zone going on in Chicago, we don't need to act like that. In 2021, where we as a people are still struggling to find a unified identity, we don't need to act like we aren't. At a time when we need to come together like none other. Bombay. Some of you said you went to the movie to go see Black Panther and did not come away with anything. And it's obvious. Because the self-love that you should have, the self-appreciation, the self-respect, as too many of us are cognizantly aware of right now, the soul to Black people is missing. We look at our sons and we tell them they cannot be sensitive unless we dare think they be something else. As if that's shameful. The king of Wakanda walks and stands tall in who he is, and he's proud of it. Isn't that what we want our sons to be? I have not even touched on how smart the man is. I haven't even touched on how much of a strategic military strategist he is. In the MCU, you never got the portrayal that he's just as smart as Tony Stark. You never got that. In the MCU, you never got that his sister was just as much of a military strategist as he was. Why is that? It is almost as if we have to dumb down or eliminate one side of us to uplift the other. That's been put in our heads since slavery and only reinforced during the 60s when they came up with the HUD program. When do we make a change? And that is why Derek Bozeman said what he said on December 8th. That they are fine seeing us being killed. Fine seeing us being victims. And T'Challa has been nothing else but a victim, if not outright killed, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, whether it's live action or cartoon. You know it, I know it, we all see it. Is that the message we're sending to our boys? I wouldn't sign off on sending that message to my daughters. At some point in time, we got to put the same respect on one like we do the other. Or run the risk of when we lose this one, inevitably we lose that one. I ain't saying, I'm just saying.